He wanted your body. He wanted your blood. He wanted your skin. Torn from your flesh, worn by priests, left to rot under the sun as the world was blessed through your suffering. This is Pantheon mythology, and this is the depravity of Xipe Totec. If you too like to rot under the sun, then check out our limited edition desk mats created in partnership with our friends at Epic Desk, available until the 3rd of August. Also, Pantheon Apparel, our clothing brand inspired by myths, legends and folklore. We ship worldwide and are rated excellent on Trustpilot. Links to both in the description. Xipe Totec. His name means, Our Lord the Flayed One, a god who walked in skin that was not his own, stretched over his body like a second layer, sagging and bloodstained. To the Aztecs, it was holiness. He ruled over agriculture, war, disease and regeneration, standing at the heart of the Aztec world, where death and life were never separate, only two sides of the same offering. His worship reached far beyond the boundaries of the Aztec Empire. Cultures like Zapotec and Mixtec honored him with their own forms. In the Yop region of Guerrero, his presence may have been felt even earlier. Art from Teotihuacan, a massive ancient city that dominated central Mexico centuries before the Aztecs, shows flayed figures that carry the same chilling posture. Some researchers link him to god Q in Maya tradition, another force of violence and renewal. Wherever he appeared, the message remained the same. Life returns through suffering. Xipe Totec was said to have flayed himself first, his own skin peeled away to nourish the earth, bringing fertility to the land. This act was central to his myth. The shedding of flesh was seen as a transformation. When people offered skin in his honor, they were not sacrificing for punishment, but mirroring a divine act that allowed corn to rise and the rains to return. To honor him was to understand pain as purpose. Human victims were chosen with care, raised for ritual and dressed in sacred garments. When they died, the skin was removed with precision, preserved and handed to the priests. That flesh was worn as a blessing. For 20 days, it hung from their limbs, covering their bodies, swaying as they danced through the city. It was believed to bring vitality back to the land. Gods had to be fed, and the earth had to feel the sacrifice. There was no silence in his worship. The rituals were public. Music echoed through the streets, blood soaked the temple steps, yet families watched with reverence. These ceremonies were rooted in belief, shaped by centuries of devotion. They brought stability, they promised abundance, and they reflected a truth. Everything that lives must first pass through death. The priests did not hide, the skin did not rot in shadows. This was meant to be seen. The sight of a god reborn in flesh walked alongside the people. Every movement told a story. Every gesture reminded the city that Xipe Totec had given his own skin, and through his imitation, the cycle would begin again. The god revealed everything through his image. Every codex, every sculpture, every painted mural declared the same truth. Xipe Totec appeared in the flesh of another, stretched over his body, sagging at the joints, hollow around the eyes. The skin hung from his frame like a ritual garment. It did not suggest violence. It preserved it. His face carries the details that linger: double lips, double eyelids, loose cheeks drawn forward and stitched into place. The effect creates a second face resting over his own, lifeless, vacant. His chest bears the marks of incision where a heart had once been taken, and the flayed hands often hang from his wrists like empty gloves. Beneath that outer layer, his true body shines in red, the color of exposed muscle and inner fire. Some versions show golden streaks breaking through the surface, a visual language that speaks of renewal. In this form, Xipe Totec stands between decay and vitality, neither corpse nor god alone. He carries a staff filled with dried seeds, known as Chikawatsli, which rattles when shaken during dances. The sound mimics falling rain. With it, he summons fertility and abundance. In some images, he holds a cup or a shield. Each object ties him to ceremony, to seasonal cycles, to the balance between destruction and nourishment. His face is often marked with vertical stripes. These lines resemble falling blood or painted tears. They run down across the eyes and cheeks, offering a visual descent from sacrifice to harvest. Depictions of Xipe Totec appear throughout ancient Mesoamerican sources. The Codex Borgia represents him in bright colours with flayed skin stretched wide. In the Codex Malyabekiano, he stands holding the instruments of ceremony, his body a map of ritual. Stone carvings of his form have been recovered at sites such as Yopico in Tenochtitlan and Xochimilco, each reinforcing his presence with both elite and public spaces. These images affirmed truths. They reminded rulers of their duties. They kept people aligned with a cycle that could not be broken. Compared to the serene features of Tlaloc, the feathered majesty of Quetzalcoatl, Xipe Totec offered no comfort. His body displayed the cost of life. His appearance demanded recognition. To see him was to remember what was owed to earth and to the gods, teaching obedience, but also carrying awe. In the emptiness of the mask, people saw power made visible. Among the ceremonies in the Aztec calendar, none matched the brutality and devotion of Tlacaxipehualitzli. The name translates to the flaying of men, and the ritual took place in the second month of the solar year as the first signs of spring began to touch the land. It was a time of renewal, of planting, of returning rain, and also a time of blood. The captives chosen for their sacrifice were often warriors taken in battle. Each was dressed as Ixiptla, a living image of Xipe Totec. For days they were treated as divine. They walked among people as embodiments of the god, wearing his colours, bearing his marks, carrying his dignity. The purpose of this was imitation. Through the body of the sacrifice, the god returned to the earth. When the time came, they were led to the temple steps. The hearts were offered to the heavens, and when the flaying began, it was performed with care, with method, and with full attention. The skin was removed whole, preserving without tearing, and handed to the priests. That skin was considered alive. It pulsed with force, freshly torn from the vessel that had become the god. The skins remained sacred long after they began to rot. Their presence was believed to purify. Those who touched them sought healing from disease, especially from afflictions of the skin. Once the 20 days had passed, the skins were gathered and taken to chambers beneath the temples. There they were buried with offerings of food, gold, and carved jade. The act of burying the skin mirrored the planting of crops. It was believed that, like corn, these remnants would return something greater to the world. Among the many forms of the offering, one stood apart in its spectacle. In the arrow sacrifice, the victim stood bound to a wooden frame, surrounded by the people. The priests opened the ritual with chants and drums. Then the arrows began to fly. Each one was aimed with intention. The body became a canvas of wounds. Blood streamed down in long rivulets, soaking the earth below. The offering was meant to imitate rainfall. As the blood touched the ground, the people believed the seeds would begin to stir. Every gesture, every cut, every drop of blood followed a script. It was devotion through extremity. It ensured the rains would come, that the crops would grow, and the balance between the worlds remained intact. Xipe Totec stood at the very core of the world's design. As the red Tezcatlipoca, he ruled the east, the place of the rising sun. His brothers ruled other directions. Quetzalcoatl, the white Tezcatlipoca, stood for the west and wisdom. Huitzilopochtli, the blue, ruled the south and war. And the black Tezcatlipoca, god of north and night, covered the mysteries of fate and illusion. Together, these four forces shaped the universe and kept it in motion. Among the people, he was known as both a bringer of disease and a source of healing. The skins worn during the festival remained within the temples long after the rites. They were treated as sacred remnants of his power, called upon in moments of healing and ritual purification. This power came from a principle the Aztecs understood deeply. That which causes pain can also bring restoration. That which terrifies can also bless. The same force that demands blood can also nourish the world. In Xipe Totec, these truths were given form. His presence was essential because he changed everything he touched. At the heart of Tenochtitlan stood a place known as Yopico, the temple of Xipe Totec, a space surrounded by towering pyramids, ceremonial platforms, and the pulse of empire. Within its walls, the rituals were brought to their most potent expression. Here, the flayed skins of sacrifices were stored and buried with care. Offerings were made beneath the earth and beneath the surface of the body. Even the emperor gave his own blood at Yopico, slicing his own skin to honor the god that had once stripped his own. But Xipe Totec wasn't just blood and gore. He was also the patron of goldsmiths. Those who worked with fire, metal, and molten change looked to him for guidance. The process of refining gold, melting away impurities to reveal something pure and luminous, mirrored the shedding of flesh. Both acts turned suffering into beauty. Yopico held the memory of sacrifices, the scent of blood-soaked soil, the echo of songs carried on wind, and the place where death met devotion, where gold and flesh were treated with the same reverence, and where the god who once flayed himself looked on as others followed his path. When the Spanish arrived, they declared these rites profane. They dismantled Yopico, toppled statues, and erased the name of Xipe Totec. The god who once walked in flayed skin was buried beneath stone and silence. His story was pieced together centuries later from murals, offerings, and the hollow eyes of statues still wearing the faces of the dead. We see his worship as depraved because it transformed human suffering into a sacred ritual. Skin was stripped away, worn like clothing, and paraded through the streets as a blessing. Blood was celebrated, pain was choreographed. But to the Aztecs, this was a sacred exchange. Through sacrifice, the land would awaken. Through death, the world would survive. In their eyes, Xipe Totec was not cruel. He was just.